What's going on, everyone, in our awesome Baseball Youth family? We are about to speak with Chris Dominguez, who was drafted out of high school in the 17th round, turned that down, and decided to go to the University of Louisville and become a Cardinal, where he was a standout collegiate player. He was a first-team All-American, a second-team All-American, a freshman All-American, where he was then drafted in the third round by the San Francisco Giants, where he made his MLB debut in 2014. Played with the Cincinnati Reds in 2015, and then also was in the Red Sox, the Cubs, and the Nationals organization before he is now an assistant coach at a Division I college. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like this video. Please comment on this video. Comment with any questions, comments that you have regarding the topic that Chris and I are discussing, and we'll be more than happy to look at those and kind of give our reflections and possible answers on those as well. So I hope you guys enjoy. Remember, live the baseball life. Thanks, guys. I want to go back. You made your debut in 2014 in the pros, but I want to go back even before that. So I want to go to 2000, I think, what was it, 2005, I think? You were drafted 17th round out of high school.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's something that not a lot of people are ever going to have to deal with. And the thing is you didn't take it. You actually wound up going to U of L. So you turned it down. What goes through, you're what, 18, 19 years old at the time? What goes through your mindset when you get that, wow, I've been drafted, but I might not want to go? What goes through your head when that happens?
Yeah. And, for me and my family, school was always important. So, I mean, it wasn't like a huge decision for me to go to college or for me to sign a professional contract. I knew that either way, it was going to be beneficial for me. And it was kind of an easy decision just because the 17th round during those times, you weren't getting paid a lot of money. And while it was great, I got drafted. I was actually a little bit selfishly, I thought I was going to go higher. I had a decent senior year of high school. I thought it was pretty good, but growing up in Miami and coming out of Miami, there's a lot of competition and a lot of, there's a lot of people that put in their input. And so, I thought I was going to go higher. A lot of, there was rumors there that I was expecting a lot of money and things like that. And so, which I wasn't. I wanted to get drafted in a pretty good round that I could end up going to professional baseball and forego going to college just because the money was right. So, when it wasn't there, it was an easy decision for me to go to college. Now, it was great. It was great getting drafted, and I worked hard for it. But going to college was just an easy decision.
So you made the decision with U of L. What other schools were kind of floating through your head, and what made you land on U of L? Was it Coach Mack and his kind of legendary status? And you were in the beginning of it. He's now built really an empire, but you were in kind of the pioneer. So walk us through how fighting for schools and people fighting over you, and what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Mack was great. And when I came to U of L, actually the one who recruited me was Coach Mundorf and Lalo Prado, because they were here my first year. And so they ended up recruiting me. But I could have gone to University of Miami or University of Florida, FSU. I know they were recruiting me pretty highly. But I wanted to leave. I wanted to experience something new in the country and different part of the country, and just be independent and try and do it on my own somewhere else. U of L, at the beginning I didn't know a lot about it. Honestly, I didn't kind of when you're in Miami, University of Miami, like UF and FSU, outside of that, you kind of know those conferences a little bit, but outside of that, you don't really know a lot about, at least I didn't know a lot about other conferences and other schools as much. And so, but when I had a friend who came here, George Castillo, and he was playing first base at the time. And so he said, come out, it's a nice place. And so I did, and I fell in love with the place, and I fell in love with the people in the city. And so that was pretty much an easy decision. It was between, U of L, NC State, and Arizona State. And so, those schools are great and a little bit warmer weather, but I fell in love with U of L.
So 2007 is your freshman year, and you are named the freshman first team All-American, 2007. So you make an impact right away. Then 2008, you are actually drafted 5th round. So you went from 17th in high school, where you thought, okay, you know what, I think I can get a little bit higher. and you get fifth round now. And still you decide, okay, you know what, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back to U of L. Again, walk us through whether it was Coach Mack, family, friends, just yourself. What made you kind of say, who was the vital role of saying, you know what, I think we can either do better, or I really just, I want to finish my education, or all of the above? What was your mindset there?
Yeah, it was a combination of, of everyone putting in a little bit of their input, and just, just trying to figure out what was the best decision for myself. And so, I felt, again, I had a really, really good year. Those 2 years, 2007, 2008, and I felt like I could have gone probably a little higher than the fifth round. And so, the Rockies had drafted me, and they were pushing for me to sign, but I felt like the money wasn't there. I felt like I could get an education, and I felt like it was the right decision for me to stay, one more year. I know, you could get hurt and a lot of things could happen, but I just felt like there was still a lot of, things left to do. And if I was going to go in the fifth round the year after, I felt like I could put up really good numbers the next year.
So fifth round, I mean, again, fifth round, something that so many people in this world will never get to experience. You come back 2009, you go from 2008 where you're a second team All-American, 2009, you're now a first team All-American. And now you go third round to the Giants. And again, now even from fifth to third, that's a massive jump in rounds. Walk us through everything that happens that day. Because again, so many of us will never experience that in our lives. Whether it's, where were you, the phone calls, the family you're with, all of it. Take us through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, now I think U of L does a little different, where they have their guys stay and they have, they have a little party, which I think Coach Mack did want me to stay. But, at that time, I think I was, we were in California. And so I ended up, I think, going home to Miami. And I was just waiting around like everyone else, trying to get a feel for where I was going to go. And it's an exciting time. I mean, really for my family life, and I, just all the things that I have worked for, and what my family went through to try and get me to different tournaments, try and get me to different coaches, trying to get me better. My dad coached me for a long time, and so all those things, a combination of all those things were going through my head during the draft, and just seeing where I was going to go. Now, I ended up going in the third round, and it was great. And I still thought I should have gone higher than that. I worked my butt off for that. I worked my butt off to try and get into the top 2 rounds. But hey, I mean, it is what it is. And sports happens the way it happens.
So you're taking third rounds, and a lot of people, the players have a good idea, but a lot of people outside the players aspect and maybe outside the game think that when you're drafted, that's it. You're good. You're drafted. You're golden. You're playing. What they I don't think understand is in the baseball world, it's so different. And you're drafted in 2009, and then it's not until 2014 where you get that call. Yeah. And I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about that 5-year stretch of, the minor league ball is not big league ball. It's a different world. It's the bus rides, the life, everything. It's a different world. And was there ever a time that you were like, man, I just, if it ain't going to be now, it ain't going to be ever. Maybe there's something else. I mean, it's a real grind. Take us through that.
Yeah. I mean, and just like you said, it's just tough. It's great, and it's great playing minor league baseball, like you said, especially early on. You're taking long bus trips, and you're not staying in the best hotels, and the locker rooms aren't the best, the fields aren't the best. So, you go from playing at U of L, which has we had everything there, to minor league ball, and it's a pretty shock. Now, I came from Miami, and I kind of, I had a lot of different people that had played pro ball. So I was lucky to be able to talk with them, over the years in high school and stuff like that. So I kind of knew what to expect. But, you don't, until you go through it, you don't really know. Now, going through, 5 years, especially the last year, even the last couple of years. In 13, I had a really good year. And then in 14, I had a good year. But I thought in 13, I was going to break with the big leagues. And so it's tough. And what people don't understand is, I love playing for the Giants, and the Giants were great, and they gave me an opportunity to play in the big leagues in 14. But, they won 3 out of the 5 championships in the 5 years that I was there. So, there's not a lot of rebuilding. There's not a lot of, chances for you to actually make the team now in different spots. So it was just tough. You know, it was tough for me, and it's a mental challenge. It's a physical challenge, obviously, but, you know, trying to perform day in and day out, you know, it becomes tough, especially the positions that I was playing at the time. You know, there was a lot of good players, and they already had won 2 championships. So, you know, it's tough. And yeah, at the end of 14, you know, I kind of said, you know, I'd done everything I could do. You know, I think that year I was like a 20-20 player, you know, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bags. And so I was like, well, I don't know what else I can show. If I don't make it this year, then I don't know. And of course, I think a lot of players, I'm not gonna say every player, but a lot of players go through their career, and if they don't make it, you know, they're kind of a journeyman like I was. You know, it's kind of like, well, when is my time gonna come? Or, you know, I could be doing something else, because, you know, like, you know, the other thing is you don't get paid a lot of money in the minor leagues, you know, and I was lucky to go in the 3rd round. So I did have a little bit of a signing bonus, but compared to other guys who you don't make a lot of money. I think that year I was going to bring home in total $16,000. I think I read it the other day. And, you know, that's not paying rent. That's not, you know, with taxes. So you bring in a lot home. I think I was going to bring home $3,000 to $4,000 that year. And that's not enough to live, you know, for a whole year's worth of work. So, you know, a lot of those things go through your mind. And so, but, you know, I was able to break the big leagues in 14, and it was the best experience ever.
So if I tell you the date, September 1st, 2014, does that date stick in your mind forever?
Yeah, of course.
The date you get the call, again, I mean, you've been working and grinding and going, and I think I should get it this time. I'm not. When is my time? You finally get that call again. Were you expecting it? Who breaks the news to you? You have to have teammates that are, because at that point, I mean, your family, everyone wants their friends. They want to succeed, but they want their family to succeed also. I mean, take us through the whole thing of, you get that call, you go, the mindset of, oh my goodness, okay, now this is real. And who breaks it to you? All of it. Walk us through that special day.
Yeah, I had a pretty good game that day. I think we were maybe like 3 games left in the season, the AAA season. And so I was pretty hot at that time. So I was doing pretty well those last 2 weeks of the season. And I kind of felt like I had a shot to get the call up. I didn't know when or how they were going to do it. But I think I was signing autographs for the fans. I think it was maybe one of the last times we were going to be able to do that, for the fans to come on the field and sign autographs. And so I was doing that. And then someone tapped me on the shoulder, say, hey, you know, the skipper wants to talk to you. And Bob Mariano was our manager. And so, you know, I go in the office, and by that time you kind of know when the skipper wants to talk to you at the end of the season, there's nothing else. You can't get reprimanded for anything you really hadn't done anything. So, you know, you kind of know. So at that time, at that point, I kind of knew. Went into the manager's office. He said, hey, you're going up. And so there was 3 of us going up at that time. And it was just a great feeling, you know, all the emotions that you can, you know, try to hold in. You try to be respectful to your teammates as well, because, you know, some guys were expecting to get the call up as well. So you don't try to act too excited, but it's kind of tough, you know. But your teammates are always excited for you. You know, they always congratulate you. And since I had been there for a long time, it was special, you know, not only for me, but a lot of the teammates that I came up with who felt like I deserved an opportunity to play in the big leagues. So, I mean, it was great all around. And I ended up calling my dad. I think I called Shannon first, my wife, and my girlfriend at the time, and she was sleeping. So her sister picked up, and I said, hey, put Shannon on the phone real quick. Hey, I'm going to the big leagues. Then I called my dad. My dad was already awake. You know, we were playing in California. He was in Miami. So even with the time difference, he was awake. He's like, man, I had a feeling something was going to happen today. And so he was awake. So that was special. You know, woke up my mom, my brother. And so, you know, and then that's it. Ended up the next day going to Colorado. So,
I mean, so you get that call, and then what happens? Because, you know, you see Moneyball and you see all the Hollywood pictures, but what actually happens? Is it, okay, Chris, here's your plane ticket, get out? Or is it like, we got people that'll meet you? Well, like, walk us through the logistics side of it, the behind the scenes that nobody really gets to see.
So yeah, I mean, so you start packing up your locker, all right? So you have a lot of stuff accumulated throughout the season. So there's a lot of stuff. So you're packing up the locker, you know, trying to figure out, all right, how many bags do I take to the big leagues? You know, you call your agent, hey, make sure, you know, I have maybe a couple bats up there. You know, what jersey number they're going to give you. You know, a lot of times too, the team will call you and say, you know, obviously they say, congratulations, you know, for making it to the big leagues is a special time. And then they say, well, you can't tell anybody now because we have to make a move and so you can't say anything until the next day or something like that. So it's kind of tricky. It's not really super excitement right away just because you don't know. And like anybody says, they can say you're going up to the big leagues, and then until you're actually like on the flight, landed, and somebody puts a press release out, you don't believe it, because there's a lot of stories of guys who go to the airport and they call right away and they're like, no, we made a trade, or someone else is coming up. So you kind of like not hold your breath. You're super excited, and a lot of teams, they won't try and do that to you, but anything can happen. So and that's it. You go from there, and then you try to ask questions about how do you act, where do you go, do they put you up in a hotel, you're going to get an apartment. There's a lot of, like you said, a lot of logistics that go into actually making it to the big league. So, but it's all fun. By that time you're on cloud nine, so you don't really care about all the logistics part of it. You just try to get through it as best you can. So
you'll sleep in the street if you have to. There's great stories of, I think somebody, I was watching a video or something, and somebody's Uber driver dropped them like a mile and a half from the park, and they have all their bags, and they go, I don't care. I ran to the park, and they had their it was, and you know what? You're right, cloud nine. So September 1st, you get that call. September 3rd, you actually make your debut. Mm-hmm. And what was it, a start? Was it a pinch hit? Like what was the situation there?
Yeah, so exactly right. September 1st, I get the call up. They actually had to reschedule doubleheader. So then I was actually allowed to go the day before and be on the bench and be on the roster. But just how it works in that situation, it says September 1st. And so, I got a pinch hit at bat September 3rd. My family came up to see me. And so that was good. I was nervous, man. I was on the bench, and I knew eventually I was going to get an at-bat. I didn't know when, so I was just sitting on the bench, and Bruce Bochy was like, hey, Dominguez. And I'm like, oh, man, grab a bat. And I didn't know, man, by that, I drew a blank right there. I didn't know, where my helmet was, where my bat was. And so, I didn't know exactly where I was hitting. So I look at the lineup card, and I'm like, man, am I hitting first or am I hitting third? I don't know right now where he put me in. So I had to ask one of my teammates, Joaquin Arias, I'm like, hey, am I leading off or am I hitting third? And he just laughs in my face. He's like, dude, you're leading off. Like, go ahead. And so, or no, I wasn't even leading off. I think I was hitting second. I think I was hitting second. So I think the first guy gets on. I don't even remember if it was Crawford or whatnot. And then I ended up pinch hitting. I swung at the first pitch, which I probably shouldn't have. And I grounded into a double play, but it was a great feeling. I got into the dugout, and a lot of guys were like, all right, now you're officially a big leaguer, so no one can take that away from you. So that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. And it's, the minor league parks, we have a great one here in Louisville that obviously the Louisville Bats. But some of these minor league parks are phenomenal, and they're small, really small stadiums, but nothing can ever compare, what I've been told, to when you step in the box on a big league park. Yeah. Nothing can ever compare. Was there a moment, whether it was when you walked out of the dugout, you finally found your helmet, you got all your stuff together, was there a moment that you were like, you kind of took a second or just a glance and looked around and went, oh, this is real. This is really it. Was there ever that moment that came to you?
Yeah. I mean, there's always and there's little moments that you don't really notice, it's just from getting your meal money, they hand you, a couple $1,000, $1,000 for the trip, and it's like, well, there's more than I made in the minor leagues, in a month, so it's, you start little things like that where you walk into the locker room and it's, you got your own huge locker in most places, and there's food all the time everywhere. So, there's a lot of things that go into really feeling what it is to be a big leaguer. When, you fly first class. When I got called up, from AAA, you fly first class to the city that I was going, Colorado. So you get put up in the nicest hotels, so, those are things. But yeah, when you walk out on the field, you take BP for the first time. You throw for the first time, you take ground balls, you really notice man, this is it, this is it. And then obviously, with the fans, the stadiums are bigger, you got the third level. So that makes a huge difference on how you see the ball in the outfield, in the infield, when the pop-ups and things like that. But, when you're hitting home runs during BP, there's actually things that you're hitting seats, you're hitting, where a lot of stadiums might not have that, some of the newer ones do, but So it's just all that's cool. You're right. All that is cool. You know, you stand for the national anthem and you're like, man, like, you know, I know those guys on the other side of the field. You know, I've watched them either when I was a kid or, you know, coming up through the minors, you know, so you kind of feel like you made it at that point.
And that was going to be a question later on, but I'm glad you said that now. What was there? I worded it, but I didn't really like how I worded it. Was there a person that was either in your dugout or, like you said, across the lines, in the other dugout, that at that same thing, you know, when you took batting practice and you threw in that eye opening, you kind of might have looked to your right and gone, oh, that's Buster Posey, or that's Hunter Pence, or whoever it might have been on the Giants or just on the field. You're sitting right there, and there's I don't know, name somebody that walks into the box. Who was that for you? And kind of walk us through again. That might, because again, you're a pro, so you have to be professional about it. But kind of how do you handle that situation?
You know, on your own team, spring training kind of helps because I was in big league camp that year. So you know, and years prior. So like you kind of know you get to know the player. So it's not on your own team is not so much of a sticker shock than it is maybe someone else that you looked up to growing up. You know, I got to play with like Buster Posey. We're pretty much the same age. So when we were younger, I got to play against them. And some of these players I kind of already knew. Brandon Crawford I played with in the minors, you know, and so you kind of know from your own team those players now, you know. And then when I got to the Dodgers, I think I got to face like Kershaw. You know, I got to play in that game. So, you know, you knew who he was. You knew growing up who he was. But I'm trying to think of someone who like, I don't know, you know, I was just a fan. I'm a fan of baseball, obviously, and I'm a fan of a lot of teams. So like there wasn't like really any specific person. I just enjoyed going to all the stadiums and walking around and seeing all the players that, you know, that you end up, you know, recognizing and knowing. So it was just a combination of all those players that I played against.
Sure. Okay. So let's fast forward now a few weeks. It's now September 21st or 22nd. I think 21st. You're in San Diego. And you're hitting, and this is a special time because it's not only your first hit, but it's your first home run in the majors. And there's a video that we'll play with this, and you're rounding third, and you just have a big grin. And it seems like it's a bit of a sigh of relief, but it's also just obviously pure happiness in that I'm here, and what a special moment this is. And at the time, you guys are down 5-0. It's in the 7th. So that's a big rally point for you. It's a 2-run home run. It's phenomenal. But you get to the dugout, and the reactions that you get to see from these guys who have been in the bigs. You know, you see Pablo Sandoval, and you see Hunter Pence, and you see Crawford. And it's different than it would be if somebody just hit a 2-run home run down 5-0. It's happiness that their brother, their new family member succeeded. Kind of talk us through that moment. And you hit it. Obviously, it was gone off the bat. You knew it. Everyone knew it. What goes through your mind that, oh, I finally did it? You know, it's happened. Take us through that special time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's you hit it on the head. I mean, it's finally did it. It's, you know, it's tough getting your first hit in the big leagues. You know, some guys make it look really easy, but it's difficult. You know, especially with all the emotions going. You know, if I knew what I knew now, yeah, you know, it's not really that big a deal. But you know, I mean, at that time, you want to make an impression. So I hadn't gotten a hit. You know, I pinched hit a lot, and I think that was my first start of the season, and so I hadn't gotten any hits until that point. So I was hitting the ball decent, but I didn't get any hits. So I had 2 good at bats. I had my first at bat I lined out, and then they intentionally walked me my second at bat because the pitcher was on deck. And so, you know, I kind of felt like, man, I see the ball really good here in San Diego. I feel excellent. I had a great BP, and so they put me into the lineup, you know, so I was feeling good. And, you know, Ian Kennedy just fell 3-1, and I just knew I was getting a fastball, and I wasn't going to miss it. So, and you're right, it just felt great. I felt, you know, elated. I felt like all the weight on my shoulders was gone. And just running around the bases, I was like yelling and like screaming, you know, not too loud, but I was like just pumping myself up because I was so excited. And then, yeah, like you said, I got into the dugout, and guys were just excited for me. You know, I knew a lot of Mike Morris. I worked out with for a very long time, so he knew how long it took for me to get to the big leagues. And, you know, all those guys know how special it was. And they won 3 World Series out of the 5. That's why. I tell a lot of people that's why, because they make you feel like you're a part of them, right? Even if I was a rookie and didn't get any hits, like they would have made me feel great anyways. Like those guys were great. They were a family, and that's why they won a lot of games. So, but I was super excited, super excited.
So now, you were incredibly successful with U of L. You were, great with the Giants and the Giants organization. You had a long run with them, but it's a business, unfortunately. So there's always some, hills and valleys. You're now released. So you're 5 years later. You've been with the organization. Later on in what I think it's 2015, right? 2015, you get released.
Yep.
Again, take us through it. People don't get to see this side. They only get to see the Hollywood side. Take us through what happens. You get a phone call, you get called. It's just get your stuff and get out. Or, I mean, what take us through that whole situation.
Yeah. Like you said, it's a business. I mean, it was a Wednesday. It was a Tuesday or Wednesday, and we were leaving to actually drive to Arizona on like a Friday. And so, it was crazy to spring training. And so, I got a call and they were like, "Hey, Chris, we're going to take you off the 40-man roster. And we have a guy that's coming back that's going to sign." And so it was tough because, man, I had spent so many years trying to get to the big leagues and even trying to get on the 40-man roster for a season and now they're going to take me off. And I felt like I had done everything for that organization. I didn't get in trouble. I tried to help out the younger guys. I never complained when I didn't play. Or when I thought I needed to make it to the big leagues, I never complained. And so that's the business side. It doesn't matter how good of a guy you are. They got to make business decisions that they feel is right, and it's out of your control. But, it still hurts regardless. I had worked that whole offseason to try and make the team again in 15, the Giants again in 15. And, I felt like I was ready to go. And so, I got a call and they were like, "Look, we're taking you off the 40-man roster, but we want to sign you back." Now, there's stipulation. If they take you off of the roster after December 31st, you automatically become a free agent, even though I still had 1 more year with them to play. So I became a minor league free agent. So they were kind of playing. I don't know if they remember the rule or not, according to my agent, but, it worked out for me where I got to choose where I wanted to go now, and the easy decision would have been to stay. I already knew everybody in the organization. They knew me. But I took a risk and I ended up signing with the Cincinnati Reds and went to spring training with them, even if it was less money and everything. And I just felt like it was time for me to go. If they weren't gonna not necessarily respect what I did and they had plans for someone else, then I felt like I would take my risk somewhere else.
So a couple of weeks later, after you're released from the Giants, you're with Cincinnati and you signed. And you like we talked about earlier, you went to U of L, and U of L and Cincinnati 45 minutes apart. And Cincinnati is probably arguably the closest major league organization to Louisville, and the Louisville Bats, the AAA organization, are 5 minutes right in the middle of downtown. So you kind of come back home to a sense, where you spent all that time at U of L. Did that play a role in your decision of, okay, let's take a chance with Cincinnati? I'm not quite familiar with the people, but I might be familiar with the area. Did that play a role?
Sure. Yep, for sure. And the other thing was I was already, I think I was 28 years old. So not that that's old, but like in sports senses, they make you feel old, really. I mean, it's not. But I was 28, so I was like, I'm going to try myself with a new organization, one that I could be at home or at least closer to home and around the area. And if I don't make the team, which was my goal was to make the Reds, I could always play for the Louisville Bats. And what cool thing is that I went to U of L and then I live in the area and I could just play for the Bats. It was a lot easier for me. So the decision was easy. And the other part of it is obviously the business sense and the baseball sense, in the sense of what they had, what they needed, and I felt like I could go there and see if and possibly make the team, just seeing what the players that they had. So it was an easy decision.
Sure. So you spend a year with the Reds, and then you sign minor league deals with the Red Sox, Cubs, and Nationals. I think
Nationals,
Nationals, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the following years, and now you are a assistant coach at a phenomenal university here in Louisville. They are newly Division I with Bellarmine University. I want to talk about you as a player before you kind of transfer to the other side of the whistle, and the fact, what was kind of your biggest challenge as a player? And that'll lead into my next question, but whether it's mental or something physical, but what was it as a player that was your biggest challenge?
You know, physically, as you get older, me personally, I started to get a little bit more injured. So that's always, something you got to battle. But, thank God they weren't season-ending injuries. So that's always something that I think every player eventually will battle. The mental part of the game is the hardest, because you have so many things that are out of your control. And it's, to a certain point, no matter how well you played or how well you think you played, the decision is on someone else. And so it's not like, my wife always says, in the real world, you work very hard, and there's a high percentage you're going to get paid or you're going to get a promotion for how hard you work eventually. In sports, is not necessarily the case. You could work extremely, extremely hard, harder than the other person, and the other person gets the opportunity because of someone who liked them. And it's not always like that. We always hear the, underdog stories, and we hear the guys who probably shouldn't have made it that make it. So I'm not taking credit away from those guys, but it's just, that's how the game is. And so for that to go through a season and just say, you know what, don't worry about it, just play your game, and it'll work out, in your favor. That's the hardest thing, because, when you feel like you're going 0 for 8, 0 for 10, you feel like that might be your last time you're going to play. So it's always tough, and even under a minor league contract, when you get released, you don't get paid anymore. Just for the fans out there who don't really know. So it's not like a big league contract that's guaranteed. Once you sign the dotted line, you get that money. The minor leagues is not like that. You sign, you have to perform to a certain point for them to actually keep you on the team. So it's a lot more difficult.
It is way more cutthroat than really people understand, which is why it's so exciting to have this conversation with somebody who's lived it. Was there ever a person that, whether it was you struggling with the mental side of the game and being like, I'm 0 for, like, when am I going to break out of this? Was there ever a person that kind of helped you, I would say take you under your wing, but you're 6'5", that's an awfully big wing. But, take you under that proverbial wing and say, Chris, we've all been there. It's okay. And maybe teach you something or give you a little piece of advice or whatever it might have been. Was there ever that one person?
Yeah. We had, the Giants got into a mental coach, he a sports psychologist. He was actually my coach in the Northwest League, that short season ball. So he was my coach my first year. His name's Darren McMains. And, at that time he had transitioned out of baseball and got into sports psychology. Now he was like the A guy that was going to be the second baseman for the Giants. I mean, he did well. Coming up through the minor leagues, and then a lot of injuries, freak injuries for him, ended up backtracking his career and never made it to the big league. So he had a lot of insight into what it's like for the mental part of the game and what it is for a player to go through those things. So he right before, in 2014, I think it was like July 22nd, I believe, he came and talked to me and just kind of put things into perspective on how my career, how my life was going, and really, really, really helped me out. And after that, I played really free, and he was a big reason why I made it to the big leagues, and not to discredit my family or my wife or anything like that. It's just that they're so close to the situation that sometimes, as people, we don't hear the people that are closest to us, even though they're giving us really good advice. So, and they really did help in the mental part of my game, especially later on in my career when, the mental game got tougher. When am I going to make it back? Once you get a taste, you want to get back to the big leagues. And that's always the hard part. But so he really helped me. Darren really helped me trying to transition the way I was thinking during that time.
So like we said, you're now with Bellarmine University as an assistant coach. Is there something that you can take away from Darren, and obviously your time, and of course there will be, but really something that stands out to you that you take away and you try to, now that you're on the other side of the whistle, give to these kids? And it's not, obviously your X's and O's are phenomenal, your swing, all that, you'll know all that, but is there something more that you think you have that other people, not to their fault, but just will never have because they didn't live it, they didn't go through what you've gone through? What would that be?
Yeah, I mean, like exactly like you said, they're not going to know what they don't know. And so, a lot of my job and what I want it to be is just try and try and get my experience and experience that I had and try and teach them that, you know, you're so close, and a lot of them, you don't know really how close you are to getting drafted, to playing in the big leagues, to, you know, you're really close and you think it's so far away, you know, you think it's unattainable. And, you know, it takes a lot of hard work. Obviously, you know, it takes a lot of probably not being able to do the things that you want to do to make it to the big league, because it's really, really difficult, obviously. But, you know, I try to instill in them that you're really close, and work, and your window, just like they told me, your window of that opportunity is really small. You know, I'm out of baseball. I feel like I was just in college the other day. And so, you know, when your parents tell you that, you're like, whatever, I got like 20 years, you know, but it goes by really quickly, and life goes by really quickly sometimes. So, you know, I try to tell them that don't take any day for granted. Like, work as hard as you can, you know, take care of your body, you know, cross all your T's and dot your I's as much as you can, because there's a lot of other players doing exactly what you're doing. So what's going to set you apart from those players doing what they're doing? So Coach Mack was always a great motivator in that, and he always says those things. So I came from a good person in that sense, and learned from a good person in that sense, because he does teach that, and through my experience, I've also learned that. So I'm trying to put all these things together to teach them, you know. And now being at Betterment, and I think either next year or the year after, we're going to play them. I try to tell these kids, look, you're right there. No matter how far you think you are from a Division I program, you're so close. There's not that much between necessarily a minor league player and a big league player. It's just some little things, and sometimes you think you're so far away, you know. So I try to tell them that, and just trying to, you know, as much experiences that I've had that were good, I try to instill in them.
You know, and I think a lot of the time people think of Division I as, okay, there's just, you know, they're just throwing money at kids and all that. But you decided to turn down the draft in high school and go to college because you said, obviously you were going to get drafted higher, you knew you were going to, but also because academics are important to you. And I don't think people quite understand to a degree how important academics are, especially in baseball. There is the very first thing when I was going through the recruiting process is they told me, like, there's not a lot of money in baseball. And academics are, if it's between you and another kid and you're both the same skill level, whoever's got the higher GPA and we can give academic money to, that's who we're going to take. Kind of take us through, now that you're on the coaching side of it, how important it is that, yes, you need your game to be top level, but you also got to hit the books, kids.
Yeah. And that's a huge part, and you hit it on the head. And listen, colleges might not be for everyone. There's kids that are going to struggle, that school's very hard. There's a lot of times that parents can't pay for school. You know, I don't think I would have been able to go at least to a major Division I if I didn't get any athletic aid. And I can understand that, but there's another way to do it. You can be good at school. You can at least try and perform just like you do on the field, off the field, and that means in the classroom. And it was extremely important to me. Both my parents come from Cuba. Even though they both got their AA, they went to junior college. They never went to a 4-year. They had to work. And so my brother and I have an older brother. He was going through college and working a full-time job at the same time. So it took him a little longer to graduate. So it was important for me to graduate as well with him. And my brother and I are the first in my family to have a 4-year degree. So it was extremely important to me to do that. I didn't want to be labeled as well as the dumb jock. Like I wanted to, you know, to not necessarily prove to people, but prove to myself that I could be educated. And so I thought it was really extremely important to me. But you're absolutely right. You know, the difference between a kid going to a really, really good D1 and one not could be academically. It doesn't necessarily have to be how good a player they are. It has to fit within the 11-7, and it has to fit within what the school is actually going to give you. And, you know, like, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it. So academically, I try to tell these kids, look, be good in the classroom. And I know, again, another reference, Coach Mack always says it, be good in the classroom, be good at home, be good on the field. You know, you try to be your best at those things. And, you know, it's not really hard, especially at the high school level. Now you can get a lot of help. You can ask a teacher, hey, you know, hey, can you give me extra credit? You know, there's a lot of ways to be able to get your grades up, and it'll help you in the long run. And, you know, while a lot of kids don't know that, I didn't know you know, for a certain respect, the money aspect of college, it is extremely important, and it can help your parents. So I think it's super, super important to get a degree. So.
Yeah. I mean, incredibly. And one of the things I always tell kids when they're talking about, well, I want to play in college. I want to play in college so bad. Well, how are you in school? I'm smart. I just don't try. Well, the thing is like, when you get to that moment where you're with the coach and they're going through, okay, here's what we can give you for sports and here's what we can give you academically. They don't care whether you're book smart, super smart, not smart, don't try. They have a graph. I mean, it's black and white. They go, okay, what was your, whatever it is now, SAT, ACT, whatever it is, it changes all the time. But they go, what was your test score? What's your GPA? That's how much money we can give you. It's not okay, well, he doesn't try, so we can bump it up. No, it's just, this is facts. It's just numbers. It's just like baseball. It's statistics. And that's what they go by. So when people say, well, if I just tried, brother, I mean, that doesn't matter to a coach. He's got a budget and he has to go by his scale. So that's incredibly important. So I'm really glad that you were able to touch on that. But I want to continue to talk about some, not problems, but some topics that relate to more of the younger kids now and dive into some of those. And one of them is, I know you're around college kids, but I have seen, I'm younger than you are. And, there's kids that have just graduated even more recently that have seen a change. What's the biggest change that you've seen, whether it's with the college kiddos from when you played to the youth kids that we deal with from 8-year-olds to 14, the biggest change in the game? I mean, it seems like it's super evolving. What's from an ex-professional's mindset, from your eyes, where have you seen the biggest change?
Yeah, the hardest thing right now is the analytic part of the game. I mean, that's what the biggest challenge is right now, and trying to find a happy medium to what's a lot of information, what's the old school way, if they want to call it. And I think that's one of the hardest things to try and get around. It's tough. Social media is great, and it's a great tool to be able to find information these days. I wish I had the amount of video that you can watch on hitters now. Is so much easier to get to. Back then, it wasn't even that long ago that I couldn't, you have to like search on the internet, for hours trying to find video on guys. So it's a great tool, but there's a lot of information out there that's not good. Just because you think you're an expert at something doesn't necessarily mean that's the right information. There's a lot of bad information out there. And so that's the hardest thing, to try and get these kids to understand certain concepts within the game. Off the field, I think it's pretty much the same since when I was going to school and stuff like that. But I think just on the field stuff, I think there's a lot more hitting coaches out there that think they know what they're talking about. And whether doing it from their butt, from the good part of their heart, it's not that. It's just that some of the information is not good. And I don't know all the information. I try to be as in the middle more or less as I can. I try to understand both sides. So the analytic parts is tough. There's a lot of kids that want to hit the ball, hit a lot of home runs. I hit a lot of home runs in college, and we never talked about hitting home runs in college. And Lemonis never, and Mac, we were always talking about line drives and trying to score runs, and it results in a lot of home runs. But you got to get your swing to a certain point to be able to do that. And a lot of kids, don't understand that. Where I'm at now, Bellarmine, I think the kids are great, and some of them might get carried away off of it, but for the most part, they do listen. But I think that's the biggest challenge.
So we talked about the biggest challenge, but now, I mean, again, you played at the highest level. There's been so many talks about the game needs to change. Something needs to change with the game. Pace of play, ball, bats. The college bats are way different now than they were even when you played. Things are always changing. But if there was one thing, if you could become commissioner for a day, there's one thing that Chris Dominguez would change. Doesn't have to be crazy big. It could be 20 players per team, whatever it may be. But something that Chris Dominguez, commissioner of MLB, could change for a day, what would it be?
It's a tough one. Probably to unionize the minor league baseball.
Really?
Yeah, or put them part of the major league union. I think it's very tough. I think pay, at the beginning you don't understand it as much, but when you get older, you kind of do a little bit more. Is that the minor leagues, you just at the mercy of these organizations. And they're great, and I get it. But man, my last year before I got released, I went to extended spring training, and for I know but for people who don't know, that's just you don't make a team. And so they do keep you around, but you don't make a team yet until someone gets hurt, and then it could be in the middle of the season. It could, you never know. And so I got stuck there in extended spring training, and while I was lucky, I was getting paid during that time. There's a lot of kids that make, I think it was like $175 a week. Like, there's not enough to eat. It's not enough. And a lot of these kids come from Dominican Republic, Cuba, Venezuela, Asia. There's a lot of players coming from different places, even here in the U.S. That don't have the money, so they were sending $100 back home, and they got $75 to plus clubhouse dues is another 20. You're looking at $40-$50 to be able to survive for a week, and it's just, I don't know how these organizations are getting away with that, and that's just my opinion. So I would unionize minor league baseball in hopes that you try and pay the minor league players just a little better. And I know a lot of players aren't asking for a ridiculous amount of money, but I think my year, I spent 5 years playing the minor leagues, and like I said, the most I was going to make that year was $16,000. I mean, that's just ridiculous in my opinion. So I don't know what the pay structure should look like, but I think you can get a better. I think you get better pay throughout the minor league. So I would say that's probably my biggest one.
That's why I love doing this. That's super interesting, and a different perspective than so many people would have. They just wouldn't know something like that. Another thing I want to ask you is, because you talked about the Giants and why they won whatever it was, 3 out of 5, I think, is because they make you feel like you're part of the family. But I'm fully Italian. I'm sure your family's the same way, man. Families fight. That's just what we do. We love each other, but we fight. So for kids, because this is always a problem, for kids that might not be best friends. I know I wasn't best friends with every player that I played with, and I'm sure you weren't either through all the clubs you played with. For those guys that you're not best friends with or even buddies, how do you go about that relationship? I know for you guys, as being paid, there's a professional aspect, but for the youth kids, I mean, what needs to happen? Because it can't just be I'm just not going to talk to him, because you can't be a teammate in that situation. So what would you advise somebody who's in that situation to try to do?
Yeah. You're not going to like everyone you're ever going to be around and ever going to play with. At the big league level, you try to understand you're trying to win games. So nobody really cares about your feelings, and so they do and they don't, I mean, if your feelings are hurt that day, you still got to go out and try and score the run or try and strike out someone. I mean, it's business, right? It's you try to perform day in and day out. At the youth level, again, you're still not going to like everybody you're going to be around. Hopefully your parents, and that's probably the toughest part of youth baseball, is trying to get the parents to understand that your kid's not going to be a big leaguer at 10 years old. I mean, it's about building relationships. It's about, when someone strikes out, to go give them a pat on the back, your teammate a pat on the back at 10 years old. At 12 years old, is trying not to pout on the field and just stay focused for the whole game. Those are things that you kind of gotta instill in I would say the youth player, because it's tougher, but you're not gonna like everybody you're gonna be around, and the parents have a lot to do with that, because when the kid doesn't play that day because the other kid's playing well or only plays 1 inning or 2 innings, parents in the car are like, well, we paid this amount of money to go down here and they didn't get to play, and John, you're a better player than Johnny. Well, that's not the right attitude, I think, as a parent that you should have. You should try to say, look, either you got to get better, or look, he's playing better right now. You're playing good as well, but, they'll put you in, and hopefully your coach understands that, at that level, that everybody should play. I mean, it's not about necessarily the best player. So.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought that up, because this is actually going to be my next question. I think it's one of the more important ones that we'll discuss, and that's in the past handful of years, however many it's been, the trend has turned more to, well, if my kid's not playing, then we need to go somewhere else. Or unfortunately, it's turned into, well, if my kid's not going to play here, I'll just start my own team or start my own club. And there's a lot of, we hear that terrible term, daddy ball, everywhere. And it is a problem. But I mean, we talked about, obviously, playing time is invaluable. But at the same time, there's other lessons that can be learned from maybe not playing, or playing behind somebody like in the big leagues, that there's a guy ahead of me that, is he better? I'd like to think I'm better, and I could maybe be better one day, but I can learn from him. I mean, freshman, you were so talented your entire playing career. You know, you made a difference at U of L as a freshman, but there are going to be kids that's few and far between, man. You got to wait your time and take that time to learn from the older kids and learn from maybe somebody who is considered better, whether you think or not, somebody thinks they're better. So, you know, what lessons would you try to tell kids to look into? Like maybe take that time to be observant. What would you tell kids?
Yeah, for sure. And look, every kid and parent are entitled to their thoughts, opinions, and if they want to go to school, that's totally, that could be right and that could be wrong. I'm not here to say which one's right or wrong, but you know, only the parent and the player can know in that situation if they're getting duped or not, you know. So, you know, if you are on a youth team and your kid's not the best kid on the team, but he's enjoying his teammates and you know, he plays every once in a while, but maybe he's not the best on the team, you know, as a parent, I wouldn't change to go to somewhere else, maybe for him to play all the time and not enjoy his time there, right? So I think it's very on an individual base, in my opinion. Now, the other thing is, sure, you know, and I can put the college level. Every kid wants to play for U of L. Every kid can't play for U of L, and that's what parents have to get in their head. Why not go to a school that you could play? I'm not saying better. I'm just saying why don't you go anywhere else that you could play all the time, possibly, right? You don't have to go to the best school just because your parents and your grandparents and everybody went there. You know, there's different, and that's why I say it's so individualized, and there's different situations that, you know, there's no right or wrong one, but I think sometimes you got to step back and say, what's the best for my kid? What's the best for the player to be able to succeed later on in life? That because him not playing, like you said, I played in back of Pablo Sandoval for a long time, and then I moved positions, but there was always someone in front of me that was better than me at that time, you know, and they have proved themselves in the big league. So I didn't pout. I didn't wish them to break a leg or anything like that. But, you know, I wanted to play in the big league, so I knew I had to get better. My numbers had to be better. So I just took it at that.
Sure. So that was, I mean, that's talking about probably the younger kids more than the older ones. The older ones have a more realistic sense of kind of where they are, where they can be, hopefully. But for, you know, being a college coach now, when you're doing the recruiting, you just talked about a couple questions ago. If somebody's playing ahead of me, I'm not going to pout. I'm going to be that teammate. Whether I like you or not, you know what, I'm going to give you a pat on the back because that's what a teammate would do. When, as a college coach now, and again, the other side of the whistle, when you're looking for kids, obviously phenomenal athletes, they need to be good academically, but how much of a factor does that play? That this kid is great and he might be brilliant, but he's a head case. Like I don't think he's not good for our program. How much do you guys look into that? Because I think it's one of the more important things and kind of the more underlying factors that people don't think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, the word culture always gets thrown out. It's like overused all the time, you know, but you have to have a right fit for your team and you have to know how your team is at that particular period in time. And so you always want good kids. Like, and I'll take it back again to the Giants. It's like in 14 when they won, they didn't necessarily have the best team. Now they had unbelievable players, don't get me wrong, but compared to like, I think it was like the Nationals, Dodgers, like they didn't have the best team in the National League. And so, you know, and they ended up winning that year because of the right fit of players that they had to be able to be a family, to be able to win games, you know, and that you're absolutely right. Again, it doesn't necessarily you have to get the right players to be able to score runs, get outs, be good in the classroom. You don't have to have the best players in the country and try and recruit the best players in the country if you can't get them to go to class, if you can't get them to wake up and go to practice on time, if they're always, fighting with their teammates, if they don't want to put in the work, and they're going to put up their numbers because they're really good players. Yeah, but that doesn't mean your whole team as a whole is going to win. We all know that baseball is not like basketball where you got two good players and you're making the playoffs. Like in baseball, it's not like that. You can have the best pitcher and the best hitter, and you're not going nowhere, you know, and they can pitch around you. And there's a lot of things. So it's very, very different. And you want to have a kid that's well-rounded. He doesn't have to be light. He can have his own personality. I never try and change someone's personality, but within the construct of our team and our team concept, they have to be able to do some things. So those are very important in recruiting. You know, you're not always trying to find the best players, the right fit for your program.
Yeah. And one of the things I was told by a college coach one time was, in a game of failure like baseball, one of the things we look for, and it's weird to think this way, but one of the things we look for is, how does he fail?
Yeah.
How does he handle the failure? Because he is going to. No one ever is going to hit 1,000 ever. Will they hit 1,000? So is it going to be, okay, he goes 3 for 4, but he strikes out one time and he can't get his mind off that strikeout. Now he's done. We can't. I mean, in a game of failure, it's so important to know how the kid or the college kid or the pro, whoever it may be, is going to handle that failure. And people look at that. And a lot of the times, as like you were, being such a good player on the team, when you become that that super talented player, you kind of take on a role of leadership naturally, just because you're a starter, and there's people that are trying to be you and be like you and get better than you. So it's so important, if you are fortunate enough to be in that starting position, I think that you have to go in with that mindset of, everyone is watching me. It sounds self-centered, but somebody's always watching me. And what example do I want to set? And it's nice to hear that it goes all the way from the 8-year-old level all the way up to the big leagues, and Pablo Sandoval with you and on all those guys. I mean, it's a lesson that really is timeless and ageless. So that's phenomenal. Now, the last thing, and we're with Chris Dominguez, who's taken a lot of time with us, and we're really very fortunate that he's doing this, and what a phenomenal conversation this has been. The last thing that we have to address, and it's the elephant in the room, obviously we can't go this whole conversation and not address it, with the coronavirus and, being stuck at home, and you're working with college players and all the way down to the youth. What would you tell them? Because there comes a time when kids are going to just start to get bored or just give up or get lazy, or it's a lot easier to sit on the couch than it is to work out. It's just the mindset. So what would you tell your kids, a piece of inspiration, or what to make them want to keep going and have that mindset?
Yeah, and it's tough. This is a situation we've never been in. I've never been in. And so it's kind of tough to get around and try to find the right words to say. And I think a lot of people are doing a great job trying to motivate not only young athletes but people all around, because there's a lot of things going on right now, obviously. But work as best you can in any skill that you can at the time. You can always, it's as simple as, you can always go outside and run if it's not raining. Hopefully if you're in somewhere that's warm enough right now, I mean, that'll be good enough, right? I mean, you can always try and throw with, if you can't, with someone, maybe from your neighborhood, or maybe call someone, you can try and throw with them as best you can. You can always do push-ups, you can always do sit-ups, you can always do air squats. Those are things you can always do. So, I don't want to say there's never any excuses, because there's probably people going through a lot of stuff that we don't know about. But, you can do a lot of things to stay in shape and to keep your mind right. It's a good time to look at video. Maybe look at old video and see what you did wrong and try to dissect that as best you can. Maybe it's reading a couple books about anything motivational in any sport or anybody that you like. I think that's always good to try and strengthen the mental part of your game, because, that's something that we don't work on enough. So there's a lot of things you could do to try and get as best you can through this situation. Eating is another thing too. You try to eat the best you can right now. If you need to gain weight or lose weight, you can do that in the time right now where you're not really as active and don't have a lot on your plate, I should say, as you would before. So I would just say, stay with it, as best you can, and try and get as much out of it as you can during this time.
Sure. And that's great advice. So, Chris, we're going to let you go. I really appreciate you taking now the hour plus time with us. And it's been a pure joy just to speak to another human being, but also to pick the brain of a wonderful baseball mind like yourself. So I really appreciate it. And all of our Baseball Youth family, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. That's Chris Dominguez, ex-U of L star, ex-big leaguer, who is now with the Bellarmine Knights. So make sure you check out Bellarmine's schedule when hopefully we get back to some baseball on the field. They're now Division I, so they're going to be making some noise. So make sure you check them out, check Chris out. And Chris, thank you so much again, brother. I really appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, brother. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here at Baseball Youth, we're going to be trying to do some more of these. Chris was a phenomenal interview, a phenomenal person. We loved having him. Like I said at the beginning, please like this video, comment on this video with any questions and comments that you guys have, and make sure that you also follow us on all of our social media channels, which is at Baseball Youth, where we're going to be pumping out a lot more of this cool stuff. So again, we hope you guys enjoy. We hope you're staying safe in these times. And again, live the baseball life, guys.